You're listening to the Author Stories Podcast, bringing you the story behind the stories and the storytellers.
Margaret White,
Terry Brooks,
Sheena Kamal,
Matthew Quick,
J.T. Ellison,
Walt D. Williams,
Brad Thor,
Corey, Dr. O,
Brandon Sanderson,
Robin Mom,
Ernest Klein, Jim Butcher,
Sherwin Harris.
Visit hankgarner.com for archives of all the shows. Today's guest is World Anvil is a browser-based world-building platform designed for all world builders, writers and novelists, dungeon masters, game developers, and everyone else. World Anvil keeps your world setting safe and organized, helps you find your characters, locations, plots, timelines, and maps quickly and easily as you write. Then, if you choose, you can showcase your amazing world building to the world, beautifully and interactively, to keep your readers engaged. You can even use our professional tier to build your career selling access to behind-the-scenes content your readers will love and growing your community. Build your world setting in any genre with over 25 custom-built world-building templates, complete with prompts to inspire your creativity. Allow your readers to explore the public parts of your world in an innovative new way with interactive maps, timelines, and wiki-style articles. Give special access to co-authors, beta readers, customers, or patrons to see exclusive behind-the-scenes content. There's a free version to get started with all of the major features. Guild membership offers you a host of extra options, including comprehensive privacy settings, co-authors, presentation options, and so much more. Join our community of over 800,000 world builders, including professional authors. Take part in competitions and learn more about world building at this fantastic online community. Use the coupon code HANK to get 20% off all 6 and 12-month subscriptions. WorldAnvil.com. I'm a recent convert and I know you will be too. Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories Podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today, I'm really excited to have Laura Hankin on the show with me today. She has a fantastic new book, poignant and hilariously funny. It's called Happy and You Know It, and this is such a fun book. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Laura, we begin each show with the same question, and that question is, what is your first memory of wanting to be a writer or storyteller?
When I was in second grade, my teacher assigned us all to write a little book about something that interested us. So a lot of my classmates wrote about how much they loved baseball or their favorite color. And for some reason, I brought in my family history from 3 generations in which I revealed multiple family secrets that I read in front of the whole class and all the parents on parent night. So I think that was probably when I realized that I enjoyed writing a good, juicy story.
Were there any repercussions from family or friends about that?
No, I don't think so. I don't know what the conversations behind closed doors between my parents were, but they were always very encouraging of my various creative pursuits.
Oh man, yeah. So were you a bookish kid? Did you read a lot?
All the time, yeah. It was the sort of thing where I would read while I was walking down the street, and eventually my parents had to be like, please don't walk into traffic. But yeah, there just were so many books that I felt shaped me and helped me escape into these wonderful, exciting worlds. And there was something so pure about reading as a kid.
Oh man, were there ever any adults, parents, teachers, or anything who kind of recognized this storytelling gene in you?
My English teacher in high school was very encouraging of me, and really gave a lot of thought to my essays. I don't know that he necessarily thought I would become a fiction writer. In high school, I was a huge musical theater nerd. So like that was my thing. I did theater. But he really was so encouraging. And even now, I include him in all my annoying self-promotion emails about this book. And he always writes back and is very excited for me. Mr. Reiner.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. I definitely pick up on the musical theater side of you, and there's been quite a number of writers that have been on the show who are frustrated actors or directors or screen or playwrights. Do you make a connection between fiction writing and musical theater?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when you're acting in a show, you are really trying to figure out everything about the character that you're playing and why they work the way that they do. And I think that really sets you up well to start creating characters of your own, because you're so used to inhabiting like different skins. So that was a great background for me to have. And it was really the sort of thing where like, as I was auditioning, I moved to New York to do theater after college. And as I was auditioning for various things, I felt like I just needed some creative control of my own. And it was so exciting to realize like, oh, all this time that I'm spending waiting to see if I got a call back to play this like role that is not very interesting or good, I could devote to writing characters that are like richer and fuller and, exactly the kind of characters that I like to read about instead.
What did you study in college, Laura?
I was a psychology major, which I also think helps with the writing, and then a theater minor.
So you said that you feel like that the psychology major helps as a writer. How so?
Well, it's the study of people, right?
Right.
So you get to learn about, various social trends and why people act the way that they do sometimes. And that really comes in useful when creating characters and making them interact.
Yeah. What did your grandmother teach you about love, writing, and skinny dipping?
Oh, you found that old article, huh?
I did.
Oh my gosh, that was about my grandma Rhoda, who died about, I guess, 5 years ago now. And she was incredible. She was like such a firecracker of a woman. She was like 4'10", the friendliest person you've ever met in your life. And she was actually the one who would tell me our family stories over and over again in like great detail. She would spin me these yarns when I was a kid. And I think I really learned my love of storytelling from her. And then, yeah, she also taught me that skinny dipping is the best way to swim.
You talk about this, gosh, I don't know what that is going down the road. Excuse me. We'll edit that out.
Right.
No earthly idea what's going on.
That's a loud one.
That was a loud one. I apologize.
Okay.
What do you attribute? You talk about your love of storytelling that you got from your grandmother, and how these family stories kind of came alive, and you learned from her about carrying these stories on. Why is it so important that as families that we share these stories with one another?
Well, one of the interesting things about that, I think, is that when you're a child, for example, you see your parents and your grandparents in a certain way, right? And it's generally in relation to yourself because, when you're young, you're pretty egocentric. And I think it's so fascinating as you get older to realize like, oh no, this person isn't just my dad. He's like a multifaceted man who's gone through so much in his life. And that's actually what I tried to do with my characters in this novel, Happy and You Know It. First you present a perception of a person and like how people just assume that they are. And then you blow that up and be like, no, there's a full, interesting, flawed human underneath.
You said that you moved to New York to get into theater and to get into that whole scene. Where were you raised?
I was raised in Washington, D.C., And now I live here again.
As someone who is an outsider to the New York theater scene, what were your hopes and aspirations by moving there, and what did you hope to do when you got there?
Oh, the ultimate dream was to be on Broadway.
Of course.
Of course, so I spent a lot of time going to auditions, but the thing is, it's so competitive. And especially if you're not in the actors union or if you don't have representation, when you're just starting out, you go to these open calls and you wait in line for like hours and hours and hours. And then you get to go in and sing your little piece for about 30 seconds. And it's tough. So, over the years that I was doing that, I did get to do some really fun shows. All sorts of like really good ones, some really weird ones. I did a site-specific play in an actual graveyard at one point. But yeah, I slowly started writing more and more because I realized, number one, I loved it. And number two, I was good at it and people seemed to be responding to it.
Eh, Tell me a little bit about that. How did the writing begin to take shape for you?
So I was babysitting as one of my day jobs, and the kid would go to the park and play soccer with his friends after school, and I would just sort of sit there and watch and then like check my phone incessantly to see if I'd gotten any callbacks for anything. And eventually I was like, this is not making me happy. This is unsustainable. What if I brought a notebook with me instead and started trying to just like write down some story ideas? And it grew from there.
So what did you have written for more than just writing fiction? You've written some magazine articles and things like that. How did you begin that process?
Sorry, let me take a minute to
Yeah.
even stretch back and remember. uh, yeah, some of that was, I think, as I was trying to figure out if I wanted to move away from acting, I just looked into like all the different outlets to which I could pitch things, and was able to get assigned some stories that way, which was exciting and cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So at what point did you start thinking about the book that would become Happy and You Know It?
So I was working as a playgroup musician, which is, the job that the main character in this book has.
Yeah.
And I was just like spending so much time going around to these apartments of these wealthy, beautiful women in New York City and singing to their babies, and then wondering what these women's lives were like behind the curtain. And so I knew that I wanted to do something in that world for a long time, but I wasn't quite sure what. And then one day, I got asked to do a play group for lonely new moms who were looking to make new mom friends, and only one mom showed up. So it was just me and her, and we eventually started talking, and I realized how cool she was and how much I wished that we could be friends, but we just lived in different worlds. But it got me started thinking, like, what if we were being sort of forced into each other's lives on a regular basis? And that's where the book started from. So, I probably started writing it in earnest late 2016, early 2017.
So this idea of a playgroup musician may be a little foreign to people that don't live in New York. For instance, what exactly is this job, and what kind of responsibilities do you have, and how do you get plugged into this scene?
Yeah. So there are a lot of different versions of it. And I started by doing a sort of like Gymboree type job. If you know
Yeah,
Gymboree,
yeah.
it's like, yeah, one of those companies that hosts music classes and parents can come and bring their babies to. And you have a good time and it's good for the baby's development. And it also lets like the parents get a little break and meet each other. Um, and then from there, I sort of got funneled into this world in which very wealthy mothers would like host private play groups in their apartment. So for like 45 minutes, I would come to this apartment. There would be a group of mothers there, like a, specially curated group of mothers. And I would like shake some egg shakers and sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and watch the women drink their wine and, wonder about everything.
Wow. What is there money in that? Can you make a good living, getting plugged into these, special play groups? And is that something that you could make a living at?
Yeah, 100%. Honestly, where the real money was at birthday parties.
Oh, I bet.
Like I did a lot of those, and yeah, it's like you go and you perform for 45 minutes and you can make hundreds of bucks, which is wild. It's wild, but like I did it for a billionaire at one point. It's like
Wow.
it's a weird world.
It's a weird world. That's so unique, though. So you're watching these people, and you can, probably imagine what some of these people are like, and what goes on in their world. At what point does the book start taking shape? Was it when you had this interaction with this woman who was alone? Is that when it kind of started growing for you?
Yeah, that's definitely when it started growing, but it was very different at first. I think because I'd had this interaction with this woman, my initial thought about this book was that it would be about a playgroup musician and like a new mom who had just joined this playgroup where she really didn't fit in. And it would be sort of the two of them developing this odd couple friendship, against the rest of this playgroup, which is made up of a bunch of Stepford moms. And as I started writing that, I realized that all the other moms, it was just too satirical, and like you really didn't care about them at all. And so I was like, well, let me try to write their backstories. Let me try to write their backstories, and see if that'll help me like lock into something interesting there. And as I wrote those backstories, I realized that I loved writing from the point of view of these other moms in the playgroup, and that actually the mom that was supposed to be my main character was not nearly as interesting as any of the others. So I deleted her and then made it much more an equally shared point of view novel between Claire and a few of the playgroup moms. Claire's the musician.
So let's talk about Claire for just a moment. She was obviously informed by you and through these experiences that you had. Tell me a little bit about discovering the character of Claire, and at what point did she diverge from you?
Mm-hmm. Well, Claire and I think, share a lot of the same feelings about things, and both went through a period of time of feeling really dissatisfied with our lives and worrying that, maybe we had all these big hopes and dreams for ourselves that were never going to come true. But Claire's backstory is very different from mine. She is a singer who was in a band, and they basically kick her out and then immediately gets super famous with their new lead singer. Um, and so she has to hear their hit song on the radio all the time. And she's just like broke and desperate and depressed and not handling anything in a healthy way. So she is like prime material to get sucked into this group of mothers who feel it, being around them feels very intoxicating. And they're partially her employers, they're partially her friends, and they're partially like a mother substitute because her own mother is not close with her.
That brings up such a great point, because it really explores the lines in our relationships. What is professional? What is, where does the professional end and the friendships begin, and this whole mothering aspect. how much fun was that to write and to explore those boundaries?
Oh, it was so fun. It's so fun to push the boundaries. And I just kept pushing them further and further as I went along.
You also are one half of a great duo called Feminarchy, and you guys have some amazing videos that are they kind of border on not safe for work
Uh-huh.
territory. Having that side of you, and then through the book, seeing this other side of what you possibly were with the the playgroup musician. How fun is it to explore these different sides of you and your creative life?
Oh, it's the best. It keeps me sane too, because it means that anytime I'm hitting a wall on one side, like with, writing a novel, sometimes you just get to a point where you're like, I don't know what to do here. And I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall and I need to just like tuck this in the back of my brain and have it work itself out while I'm not paying attention. And so then I can just switch over and be like, hey, now how about I write some funny comedy songs with my comedy partner, Dominique.
When writing the book Happy and You Know It, there are some very serious moments in the book, and the whole idea of the story kind of has a dark side to it. But you fill this book with kind of your trademark dark humor that kind of bleeds through on the pages. How important is wit and this kind of dark cynicism? But and I say that with trepidation because I didn't feel that the book was cynical, but I can definitely sense that about you in it. Is that a balancing act, or is this just your natural kind of response to the world that kind of bleeds out through your writing?
Oh, that's interesting. It might be partially my own natural response to the world. But I think mostly what I want to do is I want to write things that just feel like fun and juicy and like delicious to tear through. But while also really being able to grapple with some darker subject matters and dig into some of these issues, like why are women told that they need to be so perfect, and like what is the downside to the wellness industry or to social media, and exploring like so many of the characters deal with shame. But I think a way to sort of sneak that in is to make sure that you're lightening it all with humor as well. And that's the kind of stuff that I want to read. Like my favorite stuff makes me laugh and cry. I don't know if this book necessarily will make you cry, but hopefully it'll make you think.
For sure. Were you working while you were writing this book? Were you still doing this job?
Yes.
That had to be a balancing act, or constantly watching the people around you. Oh, I'm going to use this in the book.
Yeah, it was such a balancing act. Because also the thing is that like performing for kids and performing at birthday parties in particular is kind of exhausting. And physically you're like carrying your guitar and a huge bag of props like all across the city. You've got to put on this cheery performance for an hour. And so sometimes it was hard when I came home to force myself to write, but I just had to do it.
Yeah. When you finished the book, how did you go about getting it out to the world? Was finding an agent and a publisher a difficult process?
So I was lucky in that I was working with an agent from the beginning on this book. I had actually written a whole other book before that I could not sell.
The
People,
desk drawer novel.
yeah, I loved it. It was a great one. But people very much had the response. Editors were very much like, this is lovely. We just don't know how to make it a bestseller. And that's what we need right now. But it's like a quiet story of a girl dealing with her mother's death. But an agent who liked the book was like, oh, you said that you also have this story idea about a bunch of playgroup moms and their musician. Why don't you start writing that and send me like 50 pages at a time and we'll talk about it and I'll give you feedback. And then if I like it at the end, I'll try to sell it for you. And thank God for that, because she gave me like such a crash course in how to write a good commercial novel. Her name is Stephanie Lieberman at Janklow and Nesbitt, and I love her.
Absolutely. What do you feel like was the difference for this book and that first book that you wrote? You know, what, even though it was a fantastic story, I'm sure, what changes in the writing process that you can tell from sitting on this side of the process? What changes from that first book to this book that makes this one such a fantastic read, and, you know, separates it from the non-saleability of the first book?
Yeah, I think some of it is really finding that good hook that you can communicate like quickly and easily what sets this book apart from other things that are out there, while still tapping into the zeitgeist of like the things that people are talking about and interested in now. And then I also think some of it is, you know, having an interesting plot with a lot of twists. Like this book has some really fun plot twists that hopefully have readers being like, oh my God, I have to tell my friend to read this so then we can discuss that. I think those are just a few of the elements that really separated it.
Absolutely. Well, the new book is called Happy and You Know It. Happy release day for the
Thank
book.
you.
It's absolutely phenomenal. I know it's going to find a huge audience. Laura, if we're going to put links to the book in the show notes of this episode where people can easily find it and go grab a copy. But if people are just learning about you, there's so much about what you do and who you are to explore. Is there a place they can connect with you online?
Yeah, absolutely. LauraHankin.com is my website, and I'm also pretty active on Instagram and Twitter, a little less active on Facebook, but at Laura Hankin.
Absolutely. We will put a link to those in the show notes as well. Laura, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show today.
Thank you. It was really fun.
Authors, I have a fantastic new service to tell you about. It's called PubSite. PubSite is a service to help you build your very own website, your home on the web, where you can promote your work and give your fans a place to connect with you. PubSite is a website platform that allows every author, regardless of budget, to have a great-looking professional website developed by the book marketing professionals at FSB Associates. PubSite is the new, easy-to-use DIY website builder developed specifically for books and authors. Whether you're an author of one book or 20, or a small publisher, PubSite allows you to build, design, and most importantly, update your website pain-free. No need to be dependent on a designer or webmaster to make a small but costly change to your website. Save the money and do it yourself. PubSite is the best platform for authors because it's a book-centric platform. PubSite was built just for authors and small publishers. Every design, feature, and layout is book-centric. They have customized designs for you to use. It's easy to build. No coding or HTML is necessary to create a stunning, professional-looking website with all the features you want. Get a custom domain name, yourname.com. It's simple to update. You can add all of your books, add a blog and a book tour, sell from any retailer, manage your email list and social media, and even do e-commerce. Build your website with a 14-day free trial, then pay just $19.99 per month, which includes hosting. And we offer packages starting at $499 to set up the website for you. Pub-site.com, the place to help authors find their home on the web.